are thrilled to kick off with a remarkable guest who embodies the spirit of perseverance, innovation, and success. Our speaker's journey is not only a testament to the power of hard work and dedication, but also a source of inspiration for all those who seek to make a meaningful impact in their respective fields. We are honored to introduce Dr. Rajat Talak, a distinguished expert in science and technology. Dr. Rajat Talak is a Goa-born scientist and technologist working at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, USA. He did his schooling in Margao, Goa, before moving to NITK Surathkal and then to the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, where he explored and cultivated his love for mathematics, science, and engineering. At MIT, he completed his PhD and is today a research scientist working on robotics and robot perception. Please welcome our interviewee, Dr. Rajat Talak, on the dais. Our interviewer, Siddharaj Mopkar, is a graduate of the National Institute of Technology, Calicut, and an alumnus of the Teach for India Fellowship. He envisions a world where young minds are empowered to make appropriate career and life choices. The last decade started with the spread of smartphones. The internet became widely available, the pandemic forced us to learn online, and the very recent developments in artificial intelligence have changed the field of education. Please welcome Siddharaj Mopkar on the dais. Get ready to hear about incredible journeys and insights of our remarkable interviewee.
So you're working as a research scientist at one of the pioneering technological institutes in the world, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And I want to thank you that you've spared your precious time of vacation to speak with all these youngsters in the room and all of those who are watching us on TV as well and other social media platforms, right? So when you say research scientist, what does a scientist really do?
Okay.
Right? We've been, as a kid, I remember going to a party and I think I would be in 7th or 8th grade. And there was an adult who always asked you, what do you want to become when you grow up?
Yeah.
And I had said scientist without really knowing what a scientist does. So can you help us spread a little light on what a scientist really does?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I want to thank Siddharaj for inviting me, B, having this new initiative where you're calling a lot of people who are outside Goa maybe to sort of connect with students. I think it'll be very useful. And I would also tune into those programs because I want to know what other Goans are doing. So thanks you're doing very good initiatives at Vidyavriksha. So I want to acknowledge that because there are very few people in Goa who are doing the kind of initiatives that Siddharaj is doing. And that's one of the reasons I sort of accepted and readily said yes to come here.
Thank you.
So scientist. So science, right? So it's more about exploration. So there are things that we know and there are things that we don't know. So let's say 100 years ago, we didn't know how things flew. We didn't know how to make an airplane. We didn't know like how to make things that will fly. So forget long distances, even like short distances or time of flight, reasonable, say 30 minutes of time of flight. We didn't know, but now we do because of discoveries. Today, there are so many things that we still don't know. These days the buzzword is like robotics and AI, but that is an aspiration to build something that looks like a human, behaves like a human, acts like a human. We don't know how human brain works. We don't know how our physiology, biology works. We want to make machines that work like that. So there are a lot of unknowns. And so science is basically, there's a boundary between what is known and what is unknown. And it's about pushing that. So that is what scientists try to do. Mechanism-wise, how it works is usually the people who get to do these things are academicians, that is university professors. So if you're a university professor or maybe even a research scientist, that is assistant professor, associate professor, there are different ranks. But so what you generally think about is where that boundary is in your specific discipline. What is it that needs to be done according to you? And of course, that opinion is formed by talking with other scientists. and what is it that needs to be done, what is it that you can do in maybe next 2-3 years, and then you'll write, say, funding proposals. Now there are government, so main entity that funds science is government across like US, India, China, Europe, everywhere. So these people will generally write funding proposals to government agencies. So in India, there's like Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, DRDO. A lot of people fund research. So then your proposals, so your main aim, one of the part of being a scientist, like seeing where that boundary is, writing proposals, I want to do this, you'll get money. So that's the first part. The second part of doing scientists, being in science is, so a lot of kids will come, they want to become scientists. So you'll have a lab, you'll take them, you'll mentor them, train them to become scientists while you're trying to solve those problems. So you'll also engage them in like solving those problems, to show them how it is done. So that's the second part. And the third part about becoming scientists is talking to other scientists. This is very important. So today, there were like olden days, there used to be a mindset, you sit under a tree, you'll sort of think of an equation, there'll be some brilliant idea. It doesn't work that way anymore. So these days you have to talk to other scientists, see what is going on. Travel the world also talking to other scientists. So that part, I guess, is probably common with like other fields as well. But in science, it is also there. So these are 3 things that a scientist does. And people who do science are mainly academic, like professors in your IITs, Indian Institute of Science, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, statistical institutes. So that's in India.
Could you shed some light on, as a robotic scientist, like scientist in robotics, how do you go about solving a problem?
So everyone will have their own answer. So I don't want to like say there's one way of solving problems, but so let's say maybe robotics, right? What people have been trying to do is, so you want to build a machine that sort of is like a human. So olden days, let's say apes, you said, is we build tools that helped us do things like cut and maybe climb and drive with a wheel, light fire. And of course, this got more and more sophisticated with like agricultural revolution, then industrial revolution. We developed machines, but now we want to do something more sophisticated because we have computers on a chip. So the size of the silicon chip has sort of gone down. We can do a lot of computation on it. And so we are thinking more like, can we make something that is almost like that can replace humans in many of our mundane activities? And so that is a question for like robotics. And so it's an open problem. If anyone claims that they've solved it, they haven't. So there's like a lot of unknowns, a lot of research problems.
You have to go through a particular sort of regime that kind of gets you into NIT, right? And you were in Goa, back, like you are 1 year senior to me. And what was that preparation like? Were you like that padaku type bacha or every parent looks at and says, look at that guy, he studies for 14-15 hours a day?
Yeah, I don't think I studied for 14-15 hours a day. My grandmother attests to it. Padaku, so that's a new word.
Padaku, nerd, whatever,
Okay. So
because I'm pretty sure in the audience there are these kids who are like, oh, he's become a PhD, so he would be a nerd when he was a kid. So what was your journey as a kid like?
So I was not very good in studies. So I used to get like 80%. So maybe I should tell the story. Let's see. So I used to get like 80%, okay, on a good day. Otherwise, I would get 75. Just passing distinction. So then what happened was, so there was a close relative of mine, Sankit Timle. I used to go to him and he gave me this, he showed me this one book, which was Problems in General Physics by Irodo. So these are old Mir publishers. I think they were published during Soviet era books.
I've solved the first page of it.
Yeah.
I have not gone to the second page.
Oh, okay. So I like that book so much. So he introduced it to me in like after 9th standard, and we got to discussing, and I liked it a lot. And then there was pressure from home. So they said, "Tu yahan घेऊन बसतलो." That is, you'll just work with this. You won't focus on your 10th standard. So as a balance, I sort of promised to him that I'll come to you after my 10th exam gets over. And he said, yeah, sure, good. But I know many people say this. You will not come. So, but my 10th exam got over. I landed at his door the next day. And he was wonderful. He did his BTech at ITPH, so at an IIT at Banaras. And he was a wonderful teacher then and even now. So so we sat through the summer and sort of worked on. He taught me physics basically as much as he could, and then I also learned mathematics on my own. The thing that happened because of that was, so there's this college called Damodar Higher Secondary. So I did my 11th, 12th there. So there was a professor, like teacher, mathematics teacher. His name is Tarekar, wonderful guy. What he used to do was, the college used to get all like 90%. So all Goa, 90% used to land up there from South Goa.
Yeah.
So my classmates were like 94, whatever. Both toppers,
High
first, second, 5, 6,
yeah.
Everyone was there. And I just gotten him at the end because mine was like 82%, and I think the cutoff was minus 0.2.
Okay.
Whatever my percentage was, minus 0.2.
Yeah.
So I just...
You were the last
Yeah, I was the last or second last student in. But Tarekar was a very clever teacher. So what he used to do was, he set a very tough first exam, like there was a midterm exam, set a very tough paper because he knew all these kids are, on their high, like we are 90%.
Burst the balloon.
Yeah, they had to burst the balloon so that they could then prepare for this thing. Now I had done all this Erodo problems in the summer, so, and I learned calculus on my own. So the first exam, the board highest, I think, got like 19.5 or something, and a lot of people failed. That was the intent. And like 19.5, something 50. I don't remember exactly, but not many people got more than 10 out of 20. And I got 20 on 20.
Oh.
So now everything like sort of went through the roof. So everyone was like, I didn't get that.
Yeah, I know.
But so honest in thing. So but they everyone got curious, like what happened, and so somehow people figured out that I had to go to Sanket Timle. It was so much. I think the principal also came to me, like I was in class one day, and suddenly I got this thing that principal is calling me, and I got like, what have I done? I've not done anything. So I go outside, and he said, who do you go to answer? And then I realized that his daughter was in the other class. Okay. So he wanted sort of advice for that. So that happened. Okay. And but it was fun. And so then what happened was, like, a lot of people rushed to Sanket Timle, who was my teacher, that please teach us also. And he was reluctant to teach IITG, and that time there were no classes. Yeah. So Prabhudesa, I think, just had started in Panje that time. Okay. And there were no classes then. Yeah. So people just rushed to him, and he was like, I'm not going to take, I'm going to take. We were also pushing him to take. So then he started a batch. But I think because of that pressure, Prabhudesa shifted to Madgaon for that summer or something, or the following summer, to teach our batch. And after that, that demand has
got through bits and
So that entire batch then got through bits
because they were our seniors and
so that was, like, I think, the first demand that Prabhudesa met for the IITJ coaching. So I've So I regret starting IITJ coaching classes in Goa. So I don't think anyone should go to coaching classes, but we'll discuss that later. I
do take coaching classes, but not the types that you have mentioned here. So now you were among these very few people from Goa who went to these colleges away from home. Nustena. You go, Nustena, and you go away, and then you meet this whole pool of kids who come from all over India, right? And when I went to NIT Calicut, I was in a disarray for the first 2 weeks. I was like, where am I? What am I doing? So many different states. You can hear Telugu from one side. Like Telugu is a very prominent language in colleges, and then you can hear all kinds of languages there, right? And then you are in amongst all these toppers from all across the country, right? And sometimes you get a little what do you call it? Shaken there, you know. Paula Kamana. How was your first year and the progression from there in NIT?
Yeah, actually, that has been a good experience, not just at Suratkal. Right from Damodar's, I got thrown into a place where they were all board toppers, and they were very good students. Okay, even now they're like doing really well. Suratkal, I got into again. I was almost at the bottom, getting in, and but the student crowd was amazing. So I learned a lot from them. A lot of times, what happens in India is there's a scarcity at the supply end in terms of education. Like, there are not good educators. There are not good institutions, but there are a lot more people who want good education. So I was one of them. So, but what you can learn is from that student crowd. So I learned a lot from Suratkal, and the same thing was then again at ISC, because that's again toppers from everywhere else, and again at MIT. So actually, to answer your question, what happens is, so at MIT, right, the biggest problem among students is imposter syndrome.
Okay.
That is, they feel that they are not good enough. Because there's so much of a brand and this value that is created, and everyone feels like I'm in this place and I'm not maybe good enough. And in some measure, it exists in all places, like Indian Institute of Science at Suratkal. So that part is common.
So how was academics like from first year?
From first year
to
because
you applied to IIC after that.
Yeah. So I'll maybe say one interesting story there, and that is so a lot of people did this competitive exams, right, and they reached there. To my surprise, so that time, right, it was. I don't know. Right now, the NITs are like 50% for the state and 50% national, right?
And now that we have one, we don't really have those seats that used to be reserved for Goa.
Right. So that is what I was talking about. So my batch, we had that. I think it continued 2-3 years after.
Our batch was the second last batch.
Yeah. So that's correct. So 2-3 years after our batch, it continued, and then they stopped it. So I got on those seats for Goa. So only people who had ranks behind me were people from Northeast. And so that's
largely same case.
But right from the first year, right, every time what happened was the exams or whatever academics, I would easily, out of class of 70 in the EC, I would easily be in like top 15 or 20.
So right from maybe in 60s and out of 70. At the start of the
so at the start I would be like 65 or 67 out of 70 according to those competition rankings, AIEEE that time. I would go to like 10 or 15 depending on the subject. I would also be like one in few subjects.
So why do you think that is? Because there are so many people who have studied so hard, have got ranks above you, but then you end up
so that is the reason I want to tell this story, because I think the reason was a lot of those kids went through this competitive exam preparation and they were just solving those problems. I didn't go to any coaching institute. I didn't even go to Prabhudas. I studied by reading books. So when I went to university, I knew how to read books and learn for myself. But everyone else struggled. Because their way of learning for last 2-3 years was this is an exam paper, this is the pattern of questions, and you'll have a preparatory set of like hundreds of questions, maybe thousands, and you'll prepare that and then go and answer that exam. Now once you're in university, there's no pattern like that. You're learning what you want to learn. There are optional courses, there are electives, there are so many books. You can read this book or that book. It depends on you. What will come in the exam, nobody will tell you.
Since you started learning on your own as a kid,
and to mention, like it's not just like what will come in exam. You're developing that skill which you'll use as your professional skill, right, after you graduate. So it's not just answering that paper and sort of getting away with it, because if you just do a fudging job, then the employer is going to find out, or there's no way you can aspire to be a scientist then. So you have to really read and learn for yourself and learn that which you want to learn.
When we talk about students being curious, doing things on their own, trying to ask questions, collaborating with other students, all these things, what would you advise these students sitting here? What do they actually do concretely that this curiosity stays alive for longer than what the system tries to do to us?
Rather than just going doing rote learning for answering competitive exam, I just stayed on reading books. It's not, people say it's not the best strategy, but it helped me keep that creativity and sort of, curiosity alive.
It was your own
Yeah,
initiative.
there's that idealism that you should keep alive. Otherwise, you'll go dead. So in Suratkal, what I did is, so there used to be courses, and you have some prescribed books and things like that. But I never just relied on that. That time, internet had just come, and MIT OCW was there.
Oh, yeah.
It had just come.
Yeah.
There were no video lectures like now. But so I would go on those pages and I would see what are the courses, equivalent courses that are being taught in other universities around the world, and what are the reference book that they are prescribing, and I would try to make it a point to read that. And being at Suratkal, one good thing was they had a very good library. So you could go and get those books and try and see. Because kind of textbooks you prescribe also matters, because books are at the end written by authors. It's author's perspective on how you should do them. So if you read it by some really good person who has spent like a career doing that in that field, and if you read that, then it has a different way it can teach you. So for example, physics, right? There'll be so many people teaching physics, but nobody has written books like Feynman has.
Yeah.
Or H.C. Verma has. So you have to like get to the right books. So I kept doing that. I don't think I was alone in that. People do it. So that is one thing that you should do. Like answering exams is like one part, but don't treat it as the whole 100% of your effort. Keep some part, and as much as you can work for like reading and developing curiosity and keeping that idealism alive.
What, like a message that goes out here from your life is, and from my experience as well, is that whether you do well in those exams or not, if you have the innate curiosity to go out of your way, to pick up a book, to watch a video, to do a course online, to maybe participate in a competition across the globe, like Sai Pranav has done, and just give it your best there, can propel you no matter what your status in the classroom is. Because largely we do this thing for, that we feel better about ourselves when we do well in the exam. And that is kind of given importance.
Yeah, our exams are a bit of a problem, and scoring based on that is also a problem. So in the US, there's a system, at least so for the graduate school, right? So or even I think undergrad, they don't reveal the grades they won't reveal your grade to anyone else. So it's privately to you.
Okay.
So there's no like ranking system. It's sort of
So it's not out in the open for people to.
Not like in our case, like it's put on notice board. Prasdaina.
Or on the front page of the newspaper, the whole ad.
Yeah, that's
right, today. Yeah.
So it's for your personal evaluation that I wanted to learn this, and these are the things that I worked out and did on my own. So where am I lacking, and what can I do to improve? I think it's
An
more
exam
for
is
that.
meant to serve a purpose to just know where you are
and to improve you.
And so that you can make those corrections.
Don't make the exams 100% of students' effort. Like that's not the only thing they're aiming for. So you'll have to take additional effort to teach the subject in a way that again drives them towards curiosity and sort of pushes them towards reading and exploring. And so one of the things that I found is like if I start reading, right, the way I understand it, there's a threshold point. So if I read like below that threshold, right, I won't be able to compete with the people who do competitive exams. Let's say, right? There are people who just do, let's say, competitive exams, like just see final paper and just try to learn what is required. And let's say I'm doing only reading. There's a threshold. So if I read below that threshold, I won't be able to compete.
Correct.
But if I read up beyond that threshold, right, then it's sort of in my body. It's in my system. It'll come out instinctively. So then no matter how much preparation they do, I'll be able to beat them. So you should read beyond that threshold. And maybe the right answer to that for students as well as teachers is that inspire students to read beyond that threshold, figure out what it is that you have to read, and make sure that they put in that effort to read, and you should also help them to do that.
Yeah.
If you below that threshold, it won't happen. So you may get complaints that I'm reading, but I'm not able to complete.
Get marks,
because that threshold. Maybe you're not reading the right books.
Now I'm coming to a very cliched question, which is being asked everywhere, all around the world,
Okay.
since the release of ChatGPT.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like 1.5 year back or 1 year back when I came across ChatGPT, I'm like, oh wow, it can do so much. And now I see myself do that like before every class,
Yeah.
in a way, just to get ideas. Sometimes the machine knows better analogies than I can come up with. How do you think this new way of living, or new, where it has entered everyone's life, is going to impact education in the coming years?
You said it knows better than you did, right? But Google already knows better. Like with Google search, you'll get things, and it'll know better than what you know. Chat GPT, there's a problem with that, and that is it hallucinates. So it can hallucinate. So it'll give you an answer. It may not be correct. Now it's up to you to figure out whether it's correct or not.
It says that.
Right. Okay. So I'm glad it says that.
It says that at the bottom, that
I hope in like good bold font and not some small.
it is in small print,
Okay.
but
So,
I happen to read it.
So yeah. So
yeah.
that is the problem. So if you start reading that and believing that, so there's that caveat. But in general, how this will impact. So in general, like the communication technology, like a lot of the content is available on YouTube or some video platform. So what is the impact on education? How would universities teach? There are all these questions. I don't think there's a straight answer. One thing is for sure, I think ChatGPT will be able to answer all IIT JEE exams.
That is a huge deal, right?
That is already happened.
No, but that's a huge deal in the sense that today the way we test to the exam and to everywhere, that's the method. Like that is the way to get. It's an entry into a new world for most people. So if AI comes into picture, how do we now test students? That should I change the ways I test the kid? Because I've done that in the past. I've gotten answers from ChatGPT. Just because I use ChatGPT, I know it is ChatGPT. But not every teacher would, right? Like if you ask for an online, so it's just a copy pasting thing now. So
in your exams, if you are asking students to write essays and submit, that's a ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
That the answer is going to be from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So that'll happen. So we'll need to rethink. I don't think there's an answer. I don't have an answer.
Maybe we'll invite more people in the future to maybe have a chat with us again.
Yeah.
I
mean, the reason I don't have an answer is because there are people working on this. There are people thinking about what would be the new way to assess students. So that is.
And that might come very soon. Right?
That might come very soon. That may take some time. I mean, even if it comes very soon, your government system has to adapt.
You have gone through this whole journey. As a kid, you learned science in school. They were just facts, right? In school, when you learned science, they were facts. They were there in your textbook.
Right.
You were asked a question, sometimes factual.
Right.
Sometimes the most things that they asked us to do was give reason. A statement would be made.
Right.
Why do you feel cold after coming out of a swimming pool? Give reason.
Yeah, there was no reason.
Yeah, exactly. Now that you have gone through this whole path from that kid to doing research in science, has your idea of science over the years undergone a change? What is science? And I would want you to talk about like all aspects of science.
Okay, that's difficult, but I already said, right? So it's known and unknown. Okay. So think of it like there's a boundary.
Yeah.
The things that we know, most of the things we don't know. Now how will you figure out what is not known? It'll depend on what questions you ask, what questions you're able to ask, and if you're too far away, right, there'll be no way of figuring out how to answer that question. So you're poking what questions you ask will depend on where the surface is. You'll have to ask something closer to what you know. Maybe half of it you know, the other half you don't know. Maybe you don't know it completely, but you have some idea. Maybe this is something known, so maybe I'll tackle with that. That sort of.
But this doesn't really happen at individual level, right? It
this
requires
is
a lot
scientific. This is science. This is how science works. This is not how every profession.
So how does it actually how is it seen in real life in terms of uh, who really supports
This endeavor.
this endeavor?
So this endeavor usually supported by governments. So
Okay.
I so person named Bush, I think, wrote letter to the president of US saying science is the endless frontier or the last frontier. I think it's in their culture. It's like coming from Europe, the frontier is like America, go exploit America, and then now the last frontier after they've seen the entire world, their last frontier is like science, and that's like the endless frontier. So I think he wrote a letter like that. It's online, so you'll be able to read the entire thing. So basically, government has to invest. So the analogy is like you have mines here, right? So we have mines here. So you dig a mine, you sell that, you get money. So similarly, this thing of ideas and science, you can just sit and think and come up with things which will build, let's say, airplane or internet or ChatGPT, which will then make money and increase productivity. So you don't need a mine next door to like develop your economy. You can just sit and fund that.
Yeah.
So that is, and so the responsibility essentially lies with the government, because US has done with the government, then now Indian government is doing it, like China is doing it, Europe is doing it, and that is there here as well. So it's well funded in India, and it's growing. So there are a lot of opportunities to be scientists. So and engineering is not the only way. So there are biology is like a booming field. So my wife works in cancer research.
What can we do to promote science, math, and technology in Goa?
There's no one answer.
Yeah, but then give us options.
I'm glad to know that you feel it. I mean, you want to do it. I think that we have to get to a point.
There are a few of us who want.
Yes. So we have to get to a point where everyone feels like we have to do that. So I think that is more the need, because I think right now the number of people who want to do this might be limited. So, and then I think people will find ways. Like we're having conversation. We talked before about this. You chatted with a lot of people, and a lot of people supported you, Prabodh, and you said like it started the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I think that
we need to have more such.
We need to have more people who want to like transform maybe Goa into science technology destination. I think we should do that. This tourism, mining, next has to be science technology.
Yeah, I think on that note, like Rajat said, tourism, mining is the past. Maybe science and tech and education. Science and tech and education is the future.